Welcome everybody to the Denver Dzogchen podcast. I'm here once again with Joseph Wagner, and today we are going to have a little discussion about the state of our world and the difficult times we're in, and how as a practitioner we can really work with all this, because it's really overwhelming. I know we're all stressed out. It just seems like we've crossed some thresholds that we can't really go back from. And so it's a lot to deal with. And I think that Joe and I have had some discussion around this, and we've come to some good ways of really managing this and how to see it. So Joe, welcome. Let us know a little bit about how you've been dealing with all this craziness.
Thanks for having me, and I'm so glad we're here together, and welcome to everyone. I haven't been dealing with it so well, to tell you the truth. I mean, this is a complicated time, and we're probably more on the liberal side, but whatever side you find yourself on, yeah, I think it's easy. If you're watching this podcast, you must be open to things, and one of the things to be open to is how chaotic everything feels. So I think, before we start talking about how to acknowledge or how to deal with it, first we have to acknowledge that this is very complicated times. It's not easy to know what to do or know even how to respond to such what look to me to be really sweeping changes in our democracy and what it means to be in America and so forth. And I have my own, opinions about that. We'll try to stay away from those and just talk about how to deal with difficult times when it's outside of your personal life. Here we have something of a choice. And I think that's the first thing to acknowledge. Not only is it hard, it is hard, and it's complicated and it's upsetting. But unlike if it's happening in your immediate household, let's say, where you cannot ignore it, to some degree we can mitigate how much we let through our fence. And I think that's, the primary thing that as practitioners we have to acknowledge and recognize we have some power in this situation about how we deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I have to remind myself all the time that never before in history have people had so much access to so much information about so much of the world. I don't really know that we're built for all this. This information, our body minds have evolved with the intention of threat detection and protection for a small area through word of mouth and direct contact. That's probably what we're really like set up for. So when we hear every day something terrible and dangerous, it keeps our body mind in a state of constant agitation, fight or flight mode. And I don't think that it's healthy or helpful to stay in that state all the time. And of course, there's some kind of like negotiation we have to do here with like, how much do I need to be aware of what's going on in the world, and how much do I need to filter that out so that I'm not, being thrown off? Because really the aim of this human life is to attain enlightenment, and if it's not helping towards that, then it's hindering that, right? And so I think that's really what it comes down to: what helps and what hinders. And so everybody's going to be different. This is part of it too. Like, some people might be able to use more of this as part of their path. They can, mind training, pure vision, whatever. They're capable of dealing with more of it. And some people are going to be more sensitive and have to pay attention to it a little less. So I think part of it is that personal, really figuring out what's personally best for you.
I think that's nicely said. And that's something that each of us can make up our own minds. I'm very careful about my news intake, my media. I'm not on any social media stuff. I don't have Facebook. I'm never look at Instagram or any of that kind of stuff, which I strongly recommend. Any kind of these um, methods they have for training you not to be able to let go. That's a different topic, and we can talk about that, but you got to be very careful as a practitioner with that. That can take over your life, and you start to live other people's lives. Here we're just talking specifically about media outlets that carry the news. And I don't watch a lot of those, but I am, subscribed to Democracy Now, and I get their updates 7 days a week, 2 times a day. In the morning, it's like, here's the news, and then the afternoon or evening or something, there's another thing saying sort of their opinion about something that's going on. And I've been following that, and I like those guys, and I think they're doing amazing work. I've been part of that for years, and I personally I had to unsubscribe, and I wrote them a note saying I really apologize, but I can't take it. That's the fact. The they What I realized and what pushed me over the edge with this is that all the media outlets have only one purpose, and that purpose is to get you to keep watching and return. That is the only goal. And that's because they need money, and it's not bad. In the case of democracy now, I think they're real bodhisattvas on some level. They're really trying to see things in a more even way. They're left leaning, but still. But the effect on the consumer is, oh my God. And that to me right now, I mean, it took me several days to make that decision. It was based on seeing that there wasn't one piece of good news in like 20 little articles they had. They were all terrible. And when I looked at it, I thought, like, what one can I actually have an effect on? Where is my, where can I have an effect? I couldn't figure out even one. I can't do anything about Palestine. I can't do anything about the stuff going on, in Russia. I cannot do anything about the Chinese invading Taiwan or whatever the next thing is, or us in Greenland. I can't do anything. And that feeling of powerlessness is the exact opposite of what we want to try to inculcate as practitioners. I think that's the primary thing. The goal of a practitioner lifestyle is to go from Shen Wang, being under the power of other, our circumstances, whatever they are, to being Rong Wang, having autonomy. And if you don't do that, then you can't do anything. And I was finding that I just was freaking out. I am on my cushion in the morning, sometimes for as much as 3 hours, and I'm like, ice, 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 ice. It's not helping me. It is not helping the people suffering from this stuff that's going on. It has no value, and yet I am freaking out and literally freaking out all the time. And I had to, take a break from that. So that was the way I'm dealing with it. I'm not sure that's the right way, but it's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I think what you said about social media is important too, because I think most people get their news from social media at this point. For me, it's YouTube. I also stay off Instagram and Facebook and all that. But again, same thing. Everything's designed to keep you on, to keep you clicking, to keep you engaged. And this kind of news is extremely addictive. It's so engaging. It's so stimulating. And even though it feels bad, it's very easy to get hooked into anger, aggression, fear, like all of this. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up protesting, right? This is like, a lot of people, the first thing is, should I be out protesting? Well, and all I can say is, again, this is a personal decision that you have to know based on, is it helpful for your path? I mean, as a Buddhist, that's the question we always come down to, because really the fundamental position is that you can't really help until you're enlightened. That's the bottom line. And anything that we do is really temporary, and oftentimes comes with negative consequences in addition to anything positive we're trying to do. And Trungpa Rinpoche had a similar experience. His students were in part of the Vietnam War protests, and they asked him about this too. And he said, I think you should focus on the aggression inside of you first. And in general, I think that is the way to go from the Buddhist perspective. Now, and of course, I think that people who do protesting and resistance in any form, these things are important roles. They've changed and brought about positive things in our country. They have. But you have to ask yourself, are you going from a position of anger, or are you going from a position of love? Are you able to integrate what you're doing? Or is it really just a reactionary, frustrating position that's enhancing your negative emotions? So it depends on your capacity, right? And your activities, what's appropriate for you.
People, when they see these things, they feel empowered to do something. And I freaking bow at those people's feet. I feel freaked out and powerless and I find myself being angry in my own personal life, and that doesn't have a lot of value. That's where I'm looking at it. But I will tell a short story that is based on what you said about Rinpoche. Someone I know was at a talk that Rinpoche was giving in Boulder at some Unitarian church. This is in the 70s, and this, it was the end of the talk, and he said, "Are there any questions?" And someone stood up and said, "Rinpoche, will you address the level of aggression in our world?" And to, it's reiterating what you said. He said, "First, I would like to address the aggression in this room," which is I think is hilarious and awesome. But as practitioners, that is truly what we are called to do. And as you said very beautifully, different people have different capacities. Some people they can handle that, and they can be positive in their own lives, and they can make a difference. My hat's off to them. Make sure you can do that. If you're a practitioner, you're in kind of a small class, right? You're one of the only people who's like meditating to work for the good of all beings at the deepest possible level. As long as you can keep doing that, then I say, yeah. Yesterday I was in Fort Collins, Colorado for a meeting, and as I left, I turned the corner and there was a huge protest, probably at least 1,000 people, all these college kids and people with signs and people honking, and I was so moved by that. I actually got tears in my eyes. I was like, wow, that's awesome. So I think going to something like that is excellent. At the same time, um, you know, being angry in your room because this is happening might not be valuable. So we have to find a balance. And I personally think we have to narrow down. We have to tighten the screen through which this stuff is coming, because all the media outlets have the same method, which is to make you upset, and they all have the same means, which is to hook you with every kind of thing. It's not only YouTube, those shorts on YouTube or Instagram that does that. Every kind of media outlet is using these techniques, and that's very dangerous and not good for us. So we have to, as practitioners, we have to first protect ourselves, because we have this precious human birth and only one goal, as you said. And then, based on our capacity, we can do whatever we can do within that, without losing our seat, so to speak. Another Trungpa Rinpocheism.
Yeah. Well, and to me, it really comes down to something that I think is really important: how much faith we really have in the Dharma, because materialism seeps in here, right? If you're not on the street, you're not doing something. That's a materialist point of view. We really have to have confidence that our practice on the cushion is liberating the negativity on the streets, that the whole collective sentient being's suffering is being reduced when we do our practice, because we're interconnected. And so that, I think we have to have that kind of faith. And there will always be those voices that say, if you're not doing something in the world physically, then it doesn't count. And this comes to so many things, right? Like what job you have, what you spend your time doing, do something constructive, like that's like the mantra of the West, right? You're just staring at your navel or whatever. This kind of assumption that there's a laziness in working with our own interior mind. But really, it's the thing where we have the most agency and have the most ability to really make change. And if we truly attain perfect Buddhahood, then we'd really be able to help.
In
So,
fact, it doesn't even have to go that far, not to cut you off, but don't think, well, I can only help if I can attain Buddhahood. Anytime you meditate and you feel peace, there's a general benefit to the world. This is Garchen Rinpoche, we've talked about this, his secret oral instructions from Khenpo Munsel on Tonglen, on giving and taking, were to recognize other people's mind and my mind are the same. And when my thoughts are liberated on my side, thoughts are also liberated to some degree on their side.
So today the subject is the giving and taking, giving happiness and taking the suffering practice. And generally there are different kind of practice It's called outer practice, inner practice, and very secret practice. There are kind of like three kind of levels of practice. Rinpoche said himself is not really expert on that in the philosophical, sense of that. So anyway, the main point is very simple. There's it's like giving means you give all of your happiness to all the sentient beings, and taking means you take all the suffering of others towards yourself. So and then in order to practice that, we must have a kind of confidence to ourselves that there is a possibility to give happiness to all the sentient beings and to take the suffering of others towards one, for oneself. So this is like it happens, and one must have a kind of confidence in order to practice that.
Degree on their side. And that works whether you're a beginner, middling practitioner, or an advanced practitioner, not only for Buddhas. We have our field of influence, and the more open and relaxed and full of love we are, the more people around us benefit. Plus, you got to keep in mind, if you are a Buddhist practitioner, other people they know you as that Buddhist, because there aren't that many, right? There's only something like 6% of the world is Buddhist. It's not that many. And in America, it's rare to be a practitioner. So people are checking you out, right? I just came from the pickleball court. I like to play pickleball on Saturday morning. My dad's out there. I got some friends. We were playing awesome today. And I went to pick up the ball because we hit it over to the other court, and there were some girls playing there, and they said, "You guys are playing so well. We were checking you out." And I thought, I didn't even know that, right? They were watching us. All of your friends who know you're a meditator, they're all watching you. So if you're all freaking out about the world, they're also like, well, that doesn't work. I guess I need to find something else. I think this is an important point.
Yeah. And what you said about Garchen Rinpoche's method, we really can do this we can just think of the suffering going on in all these situations and then liberate it instantly with one moment of recognition. And really, I know it's painful to say, it's for myself, but we have to remember our only enemies are the three poisons, not people, right? These people on every side of this situation are suffering, period. And as a Buddhist practitioner, we always remember that it's the three poisons inside them is the only enemy, not the person. These people are suffering underneath their aggression, their greed, their fear, their all those things, right? So that's the hardest thing to do, but the way of the Bodhisattva and the Lojong teachings, that they're always all about that, right? Like there's no enemy on the outside. And so we really just can keep working with the one on the inside and bring some energy of peace into this whole situation. And I have to say, this is the best thing you could do. The most important, the most helpful thing you could do.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That was terrific. Thank you. I'm taking that to heart. I love that. To give people something like that they can actually do, what I would consider doing is a news fast, an entire news fast, because you don't realize how much this is affecting you until it's not. I noticed this because I just did this. We're talking 2 weeks ago. We're not talking 6 years ago. I just said okay, no. And I found almost an instant I was able to catch my breath. And then you can reintroduce 10 minutes of news, 1 hour of news, one conversation with your well plugged in friend, whatever, one protest, whatever, one visit to Facebook or whatever, and see how much am I able to keep my seat. If you can keep your seat through that, you got your compassion intact. You're not like those people, I want them to die, whatever horrible things we tend to think. Then, hey, maybe you can move up another notch because it's good to be engaged to the degree that you can handle. I just realized that my capacity for that was lower than I thought. If I'm just all angry and upset, not the way to do it.
Yeah. And I don't know about anybody else, but for me, I just be like a crackhead with my phone, like just it's so addictive. Just get right into it, and then you're waiting. And this is like, I have to say, the big guy, he feeds on being in the news and in your face and making something happen every single day. And so we're all like, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen? Like, have you not noticed how well everything is orchestrated to keep you hooked to what's going on every day? And you can't tell me this isn't part of somebody else's plan, right? And there's big part of this going on, this like, watch this while I do this, right? So we're falling for it. So we're clearer not so focused on the whatever the chaos of the day is.
Yeah. I think you got it. So 3 things I want to say. One, take a news fast. Could be 3 days, could be 2 days, could be 1 hour, not 1 hour. It's got to be a whole day or else you won't notice the effect. 1 week, whatever. The world's not going to suffer when you're not watching the news for 1 week. And then you see, at first you realize how addicted you are. The second point I want to make, and then you can reintroduce it. But the second point is it's involuntary. Our addiction to samsara is involuntary. Our the press of the karmic winds at our backs that keep us in samsara is involuntary. It is not a choice. So you have to take strong action to stop that and then recapitulate to see what you can actually do. It's involuntary, right? And those apps, no one can resist it. You cannot resist it. It's impossible. They have got you figured out. So you have to say no, mostly. And then the third thing I don't remember. But I love these 2 things. Take a news fast and then reintroduce to the degree you can handle it. You might be surprised how much of your anxiety is about things that you don't even know if they're real. We have no idea what the news is, right? What the real truth is. We're just not in a position to know. We got these people shouting this. We got these people shouting this. And there are a lot of people behind this. I know what third one was. Terrence McKenna, the psychedelic philosopher. He was famous for saying that the mushrooms told him, you got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you become part of somebody else's plan. So you must recognize as a practitioner, you only have one goal and one plan. But if that's not in the center of your life, then you are being manipulated by your karma and the world. And that is not the place for a practitioner. You gotta maintain your samaya, and your samaya is to the practice. Once that's intact, then you can spread out to the degree that your capacity can handle it. I think 3 things are important.
Yeah, angry, fearful, addicted people are easy to manipulate, easy to control, and easy to rob, right? And you can't tell me that's not what's going on. So
True.
Remember that also, that this isn't just about your path and practice, but also recognize what's the real motivation between everybody being hooked to their screen all the time. Like who's benefiting from that? Because somebody is, I guarantee it. And a lot of people are, right? And they don't always have your interest in heart, or rarely have your interest, right?
Well said.
So
Thank you.
This is our thoughts about this, and I know these are difficult times, and we're with you, and we're praying and practicing with all of you in mind, and we're thinking about hoping this podcast can bring some benefit to this community, because being Buddhist in this world is hard. Like you said, it's tiny percentage.
Against the stream.
Yeah, my wife and I were just talking about this. Like, I have no friends. Where would I even meet somebody I want to hang out with? All my friends live like thousands of miles from me and have to talk on WhatsApp, right? Like, I can't even find somebody really, like locally. They don't exist. That's hard, so we have to have these kind of virtual, that's the benefit of these things. We do have that like virtual Sangha, and that's amazing. That's definitely Chenrezig Tara in action, right? That we're able to connect. So thank you for connecting with us. Thank you for watching our show on the platform we just told you to not watch. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you on the next feast day. Thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate you so much. Bye-bye.